chapter because I was the only full-time employee, and we had a few consultants around the state, and I was given the task and challenge and with passion, and I enjoy doing it, is to try to bring the chapter up to the next level in a number of ways. And it doesn't start with the money, it doesn't start with the finances, it starts with your value proposition. If you have a good value proposition and your message is good and you're relevant, the money will come. But I think we tend to fall into a little box and kind of stay in the same place, like digging that same hole and hoping things change. What I wanted to share with you is in my last 4 years of transition of our chapter, and I know you can't read this, but I have a cheat sheet here. I would say if we go back to 2009, most of our revenue came from sponsorships and membership and the national share. It's progressively shifted in completely different directions. Right now, branch and committee events are the lowest that they've been in 5 years. The membership numbers, the chapter membership numbers are the lowest that they've been. The member share is the lowest that it's been. And the sponsorships are the lowest that they've ever been. And the highest is workshops, the educational component. And I'm going to flip to the charts real quickly. On a percentage basis, 5%, in 2009, branch and committee events were 13% of our revenue, and we have about a $500,000 budget. It progressively went down to 5% this year for branch and committee events. Part of that is that when the chapter started, it was very, very localized, and the branches and the committees were really the predominant engine of events and revenue and membership recruitment. And I think as we centralized and our board grew, and we have smaller, more sophisticated initiatives such as advocacy, which are not small in terms of impact, but in terms of number and headcount and revenue. So we've gone from 13% to 5% of branch event. Chapter events were a third of our revenue. It's gone down slightly to 28%. Workshops were 11% back in 2009. Today they're 40% of our revenue, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And I think that's where a lot of the key to changing and shifting goes. Sponsorships were 23% of our revenue. Today they're 8%. The economy, we took a slam, we took a hit. People couldn't do the 10,000, 5,000, 25,000 as much as they could, or they just didn't renew. The dues share went down from 11% to 8% in the chapter. I think we've all experienced that. And our membership dues went down from 9% to 3%, but the interesting thing is that we doubled our membership. The difference is that we rolled the membership benefit as a combination of, if you attended an event and you became a certain level sponsor, we would give you a year's free membership. If you took a workshop under a grant, the grant covered the cost of a workshop, of the membership for a year of a person who participated in that particular event. So even though our revenue went down 3%, we're still only talking about $40,000 difference, but we have $250,000, $260,000 in workshops. That free membership gave us the leverage to recruit marketing members. Now this one's crazy, but I think the point here is that the low part of the graph indicates the branch and committee events on revenue from 2009. The middle one, the chapter events, have kind of stayed at a pretty, that's the second blip there, they've kind of stayed in a similar range, give or take. But look at the workshops. We were down, the third blip, way in the bottom on workshops, because those were the workshops, and I'm going to be frank, I think we all were in the chapters when we were talking about the education program with National. We were doing a significant revenue share, and the price point, we had so much competition on the outside that we were outpricing ourselves in the market. So what we did is we built an education program within the chapter, and we are blessed to have phenomenal volunteers within our board who have teaching skills, who are lead APs, Jason Kowinski, who's a lead fellow, who is a lead faculty. We've been able to develop internal courses where our revenue went up, and the ability to customize those went up. Plus now, with the new program that we have with National, where the whole revenue share piece went away, we've now put that into the fold. I'm going to talk about the grant in a moment, but let me go back down. The sponsorships, you can see the high point and the low point. The member share, and of course the membership revenue, even though our numbers went from 700 when I joined to almost 1,200 members now. The revenue's down, but that's revenue we've gladly given back to get it somewhere else. So what's the other? Our revenue hasn't really changed in 4 years. It's just where it came from. We're doing, on a $500,000 budget, we're in the plus between 30 and 50,000 at the end of the year. And given the economy, I think the one that I heard Kimberly say was the phrase managing for failure. It's like, it wakes me up at night, I get scared. What happens if this goes away? If that goes away? You always have to be prepared for when your cash cow goes away. We were fortunate to have a relationship with the Department of Labor in the state of New Jersey, who had a mission to get unemployed people employed. It was to green the schools as part of the Center for Green Schools program, to green the schools. How do we do that? How do you get veterans employed? So we created and we worked with National using the G-Pro from Urban Green, using the core curriculum from National and some of our customized training that we've evolved from that. And we got, in the last 3-4 years, we've had almost about $800,000 in funding to provide training to veterans, to provide training to the unemployed, to train all the school facility managers in the state of New Jersey through a consortium that we created that encompasses all the 500 school districts in New Jersey. And that's become kind of the main theme of what we do, education and awareness. Our events have become larger and more meaningful, more substantive. I just think that the point is that not to keep going back to the sources that were your revenue stream 4 years ago, but try to find the new ones. What's relevant today? Like right now, we're dealing with Sandy, and I think we have an opportunity to make some changes in our codes, to make some changes in educating the general public in their homes, existing homes. How do we rebuild? I think we have all the resources in brain trust, and so I look forward to this resiliency effort. At National, I think we all as chapters have great opportunity to offer something of tremendous value to the state. And on the expense side, real quickly, we operate a $5 million budget. The trend has shifted from sponsorship to major events in education. We sublease space. We have very cheap rent. We're fortunate. We're in a beautiful LEED building, but we rent 2 little part-time, drop-in offices, and most of our staff works virtually, and we have our meetings at our office, so we save a tremendous amount of money that way. We only have 2 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff, and 1 consultant in advocacy. We are currently aggressively seeking new sponsorships for branch and chapter events because they're not the money makers. They're things you need to do for community and outreach, but they're not financially viable all the time, so we're trying to find sponsors before we have the significant these events. We want to evaluate and reduce and get rid of the energy drains. And then, of course, they're seeking the creative alternative sources of funding. And I encourage you to go to your state and your departments of labor and see what money is available and how you can, fit what our offerings are to meet the needs of your states and your communities.
Thank you, Florence. Before we move on to Emily, just a couple reflections. I think, first of all, I bet every chapter out there would look at those numbers and relate to those. The membership's declining, the sponsorship's declining. I know that Illinois' numbers for the past 6 years, Katie knows those for sure now. But I think that the opportunity is looking at things differently, and I would like to hold up your model and saying, how can we be important with this audience in education and say, maybe it's not fee-based, maybe it's grant and state agency-based. So I hope that in the next couple of days, as you guys go to sessions, see the speed greening, go to the grants presentations, that you get some ideas for how that the market has changed, the economy has changed, that you can change your chapter too, and it can be a large chapter, a medium chapter, a small chapter. We can all be impactful in different ways. And the numbers tell us that we need to be, because business as usual isn't really business anymore. Business has changed. And so I want to really thank you for laying it out there. Now, Emily's going to give us a different perspective